Troglodyte warning. A YouTuber that calls himself a traditionalist, Richard the Fourth, has been popping up on my feed recently. So I thought I'd check out one of their videos about Steve Coogan. And apparently, Steve Coogan is more bitter and twisted than Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson put together. So let's see his argument and his evidence for that. So let's get straight into the video.
How I have mixed feelings about someone like Andrew Tate. In one sense, I can admire his confidence and his brashness, how he inspires young men to get off their backsides and try and make something of their lives, as well as teaching them some of the
What, by getting into crypto? Wow.
necessary hard truths about the modern world that nobody else is bothering to. On the
Okay, can you elaborate on that? What hard truths does he like to say? Obviously, he won't go into that.
flip side, however, his less wise father and more edgy older brother figure that tends to lead into a nihilistic materialism, a self-centeredness, an obsession with individualism, money, and bedding as many women as he can, even being a quote pimp. Surprisingly, though, it's not his materialism and ostentatiousness that gets him in trouble with the liberal lovies. It tends to be more his quote toxic masculinity.
No, it's the allegations against him that are a pending trial of trafficking minors, having sex with a minor, and money laundering. Amongst other things, tax evasion in the UK. He owes £2 million to the UK government. So it's kind of convenient how he skips over those big things. But he can't tell the truth about Andrew Tate because, as you'll see, his whole argument falls apart very quickly.
And the latest person he's upset is Steve Coogan. Now, we all remember Steve Coogan. He got famous in the 90s for taking on the Tory boy of the era, the typical Philistine who can't really understand the modern culture and is stuck in some world of proto-Top Gear. But like many liberals of that era, it's like their development stopped in the 90s because they got rich and famous and forgot what it's like to live in the real world.
They always use that phrase, like euphemism. What does that mean, the real world? What? This... I'd like him to define that term. What does he mean by that?
He's still in the mindset of a Bill Hicks or a George Carlin, thinking that leftism and atheism is still somehow edgy, but instead it makes...
No, I don't think he thinks it's edgy. I mean, Bill Hicks and George Carlin are some of the most celebrated comedians who ever existed. And a lot of what they said is pretty true and actually quite radical now. They would be considered woke if they were comedians now. So... yeah, not sure they're considered edgy in these times.
makes him look like a modern-day Alan Partridge. This is quite evident in the following clip featuring him and Emily Maitlis, where he's telling her...
Well, Steve Coogan has discussed that, how he has, in many ways, a deep relationship with Alan Partridge and sees himself in it. So it is a complex character, and he is drawing from observations of his life and his own kind of... inadequacies and his own flaws and his need to be liked. So it's more complicated than this guy is able to comprehend, I think.
How we need to win back young men by being positive, happy, clappy liberals.
We're not going to engage in a conversation about it, then empowers the Jordan Petersons and empowers the Andrew Tates by appearing to be intransigent. And in actual fact, if you have... you need to grow in number and say this is a consensus of people, men and women, and whatever else they identify as, come together and say we believe in these values, and that's a much stronger argument.
What is he talking about? This is what happens all the time anyway. The mainstream media, the liberal elite, all join together to collectively demonize people like Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson.
Why is that? It's because their views... Andrew Tate is literally a self-confessed, self-titled misogynist. And what does misogynist mean? A cruel hatred and dislike and prejudice towards women and girls. I mean, how hateful do you have to be to actually confess it and say you are? Most people who hate women won't admit it. So you have to be pretty dedicated to the hatred of women to call yourself a misogynist. So let's get that clear.
What liberals like Coogan are so blind to is that people don't agree with them. The majority is not on their side. People don't want this soft, feminized masculinity. Most people believe in traditional gender roles to varying degrees.
Simply not true. There's a poll that came out late last year in 2024 that charted the ideological beliefs of the UK population. So it had socialism, communism, fascism, liberalism, environmentalism, and feminism. Which were the two most popular ideologies? Environmentalism and feminism. People embrace the idea that women are equal. That's all feminism is. Women deserve the same rights as men. They are equal, and their problems need to be taken seriously. Also, feminism takes into account men's issues as well. So, there you go. That is the popular view of the majority of the British public. He's simply lying here, which is a theme of the video, really.
Now, Coogan's rhetoric here was so soppy, it was even called out by Emily Mateless.
Steve, dare I say it's a very Lib Dem response. That actually, if you're facing...
That really hurts.
I know, I knew.
Now, although he's laughing it off...
I mean, the Lib Dems, there's worse people than the Lib Dems. Surely? I mean, maybe give Lib Dems a go over Labour? I don't know. I think Ed Davies seems like a guy who wants to focus on the care sector, probably do a bit more radical stuff than Labour are, so, okay.
It really did sting, as you'll see in a moment, when the real person beneath this soft, loving, tolerant, liberal persona comes out.
If you're faced with Andrew Tate, online, if you're faced with, Alex Jones or whatever, online, this sort of, the toxic masculinity, as we probably haven't seen it like in the digital age before. What is your actual response to that?
Freeze frame Emily Mateless's face there. Just bear this in mind. Look at this face. Keep it in mind.
Well, it'd probably be quite a masculine one. I'd probably like to punch him. Not very constructive, but that's what. When it comes to someone like Andrew Tate, I think he's a disgusting individual.
You get that? The liberal way of dealing with supposed toxic masculinity is violence. He's just going to attack somebody because he disagrees with their views.
I don't think this is true. I think you have to think about his motivation and what he actually said. I would like to. Does that mean he actually would if he met Andrew Tate? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think he would. The man's 59 years old, going into his 60s. Andrew Tate's 38 and physically capable of doing harm to Steve Coogan. But what's the motivation? Well, like I mentioned before, Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan Tate are in Romania waiting a pending investigation into trafficking of minors. Andrew Tate had sex, allegedly, with a minor, and money laundering, and in the UK, tax evasion. This is what Steve Coogan means. I don't think he's right, per se, to say, I would attack him, or I would like to punch him. But there is a motivation there, and that's the heinous acts, the heinous view of Andrew Tate's, again, self-confessed misogynist, the way he talks about women. Women are property. Women need to stay at home. Women shouldn't drive. Women need to know their place. A very violent view of women. He holds a very violent view of women. And we'll see in a minute, actually, how he talks about women and violence towards women.
Isn't this exactly what liberals are supposed to be against? Mindless violence. They're supposed to be pro-reason. They're supposed to be able to be kind to other people.
I think he acknowledges I would like to and he's kind of recognizing his masculine self and the fact that he probably grew up in the 70s and 80s with this notion of masculinity as an angry thing, a toxic, potentially violent thing. And I don't think that's inherent to man. But we do internalize that, and we do have a view of men being more violent than women. I don't think that's inherently true or inevitable, but that is a view. And he's acknowledging that in himself. Like, if you're actually engaging with good faith in this, you go, yeah, people are complex and contradictory. He is someone who doesn't advocate violence, I would assume. But when someone such as Andrew Tate, he would have that desire. And again, I don't advocate it, but I think you can understand it with someone who has allegedly done the crimes he's done.
Be open-minded and talk people around.
And actually, I think this guy would probably agree with that. Like, children, I'm sorry. The fact he just mentioned this says everything about his intention here.
Well, the answer to that is that's what they're supposed to be. But like most liberals and liberal ideas, Steve Coogan is living in a complete utopian fantasy. It's not how the real world works, and he...
Okay, so he is advocating for violence then. So this is the contradiction. This is where he becomes incoherent. So he's saying that, being nice to people, having liberal values of respect, democracy, freedom of speech, it's just not how the world works. It's a traditionalist view that we should have. Well, traditionally, how would men act towards women? How would men act towards children? Would it be good? I mean, what the hell is he talking about? Again, it's an incoherent, emotional kind of, soup of just fallacies.
He knows it. This is an example of a male archetype many of us have come across in our lives. Steve Coogan is something of a snake. He'll play the happy-clappy liberal.
Based on what? He said, I would like to punch a alleged child rapist? Is this a snake-like behaviour? I mean, yeah, violence isn't good, but does anybody... I mean, again, why not mention the allegations Tate is facing? I mean, they're quite important.
Male feminist, but beneath that is quite a vindictive and bitter person, full of the exact toxicity he accuses others of.
I think this guy's projecting a little bit. I mean, toxicity. This guy said, I'd like to punch an alleged rapist. Okay.
This is why I'm often promoting on the channel and the Substack down below for us to try and be calm and not to be ruled by our emotions. If we can do that, we can see...
I'm sorry. Andrew Tate is a deeply emotional man. He talks about constantly how it's gay to love women and have sex with women. He is an embodiment of deep insecurity, fragile masculinity. It's the same with Jordan Peterson. Constantly being angry. I mean, he's either angry or upset. He has two modes, angry or like crying about Jesus. So the idea that we're talking about people who are rational and emotional. Yeah, Steve Coogan had an emotional moment here, triggered by the ideology of Andrew Tate, which is destructive, violent, misogynistic, hateful, reactionary.
People are actually saying. Remember, this interview started with Steve Coogan promoting a softer, more kind, liberal, tolerant masculinity in the face of the Andrew Tates and Jordan Petersons of this. Again,
but you don't have to tolerate child sex rings. That he is being accused of that. I mean, tolerance only goes so far. We don't have to tolerate the intolerant and sexual violence. I'm sorry, we don't. There has to be a limit to tolerance, okay? If that sounds like wishy-washy liberalism, well, so be it.
This world. However, he got butthurt when Emily Maitlis said he was like a Lib Dem, and then he reverted to type.
Well, it probably would quite a masculine one. I'd probably like to punch him.
You see how he aligns masculinity with violence? It's him who has this toxic ideal. I've seen a lot of Andrew Tate and Jordan.
Really? Ideal? No, I think he's saying there's that in him, which is probably internalized from narratives of gender. I think it's more complicated than he is indicating. And also, he's a traditionalist, so he likes this stuff. He likes Andrew Tate. He likes Jordan Peterson, who promote a certain view of what it means to be a man. So, does he like it or not? I mean, he's all over the place.
Jordan Peterson, and never have I seen them advise that you should physically attack your
Really?
political opponents. What Coogan really thinks...
Okay, well, let's have a look at Andrew Tate here, talking about women, and his reaction to when a woman potentially cheats on him. Let's get straight into it.
Hey, you cheated, you cheated. It's bang out the machete, boom in her face, you grip her up by the neck. But shut up, bitch! Are you kidding?
So Andrew Tate doesn't promote violence at all. Not at all. In his actions, the ongoing investigation, pending investigation. And there's so many examples of Andrew Tate. That's just one. Pretty egregious. So, yeah, he's lying again. Again, a theme of the video.
Thinks and believes is way more toxic and extreme than anything Jordan Peterson and Andrew
Really? I'd like to punch a rapist against a woman cheating on you, getting a machete out, hitting them in the face, and then choking them out. Okay. Insane. Insane. Truly incomprehensible.
Tate promote. You can see that by the look on Emily Maitlis's face. Look, I'll do a freeze frame here. Look, she's completely shocked.
Not really, she's listening. If you look at her face before his response, she's doing exactly the same thing. If she was shocked, she'd have a raised eyebrow or open mouth. This is not the face of a woman who is shocked. She's listening to what he's saying. But again, he has no argument. His argument's falling apart because you've actually get into the truth of who Andrew Tate is. He has no argument.
By what Steve Coogan is saying here. Now, Emily Maitlis is a bit shocked here because she's a
No, she's
leftist
not.
and a woman, meaning she doesn't have to live in the male world and she doesn't understand how it
What does that mean, the male world? What the hell is he talking about?
works. She can afford to believe all this liberal utopian crap. We can also tell
What liberal utopian crap? That women are equal, that we should treat people with respect, and women should have the same values, chances, and opportunities as men. Oh, but most people believe this. He is in the minority here. He wants to take us back to the past. He's a traditionalist.
that Coogan is a vindictive liberal who has no understanding of the real male world by saying he will punch someone if
Vindictive. What's he talking about?
he sees them in person. Remember, this is Andrew Tate, a 6'4" ex-professional kickboxer. Further, you shouldn't be promoting violence to people anyway. That ironically creates lots of toxic energy. And secondly, Andrew Tate would pulverize Steve Coogan. Anybody who's done any basic kickboxing like me
Don't be violent, but Andrew Tate would be violent back. I don't even think Andrew Tate would even react. Like, he's a horrible guy, don't get me wrong. But if Steve Coogan, a 59-year-old man, punched Andrew Tate, I think he would not respond with violence. So even that argument like falls flat.
knows that kickboxers are extremely strong and extremely quick. They will
True.
knock you out in a split second before you even know what's happened. But Steve Coogan must know that the Andrew Tates of the world are going to hand his backside to him. But why does he do it? Well, I think he does it because deep down, he wants to be number one, just like Andrew Tate. The only difference is, Andrew Tate is brave.
I don't think he does. I think he's a well-known actor. He's respected. He's a multimillionaire. He's got a pretty good canon. He's won an Oscar for writing. Like, I think he's pretty secure in himself. Andrew Tate, not so much.
And open about it. He wants to be top G. He's egocentric and proud. He wants
Again, pure projection from this guy. He wants to be top G. Steve Coogan is an actor with a fair level of awareness of who he is, his motivations, and his motivations are clear here. He doesn't like child rapists. I think that's fair. I don't think he should want to hit him, but the desire to hit a child rapist, I think for some people would be relatable.
to be the king. Steve Coogan does too, but he acts like a snake. He wants to act like he's morally superior to other people. However, when his ego is pierced,
I think most people act like you think you're morally superior to him. Most people do. Most people do think they have better morals than the other person. Like, that's not a unique thing. That's a fairly universal value. I would assume that he believes that he has better morals than Steve Coogan. That's literally the point of his video.
all of the bile comes spitting out and the same toxicity is there. That's why many of us don't trust terms like toxic masculinity. I'm sure
You've just used it yourself, though. And also, elements of masculinity are toxic. The fact that men are more likely to die by suicide is because we've told them they can't cry. We've give them a narrative of like, men have to be stoic, they have to be strong, they have to be self-reliant, they have to be leaders, confident. A certain image of men that a lot of men can't live up to. And what do? They do horrible things to themselves. So, yes, there is elements of masculinity that are toxic in the same way there are elements of femininity that are toxic.
There may well be a point in there somewhere that they're getting to, but it's too often used by bitter and resentful, soft liberal men who want to drag men down who are trying to better themselves to their level.
Wow, that's a very loaded sentence. How is he doing that? By saying he doesn't like Andrew Tate and his actions and what he promotes to the world? Again, he's just this moral language of just like, "Dude, these are like horrible people because they value equality and they're woke," and he's saying nothing here. He has no argument because if you go to the actions of Andrew Tate, it just falls apart.
I'll end this video with a quick story which taught me a very valuable lesson on what a man really is. As regular viewers know, I'm something of a traditionalist. I have traditional values. I believe men should be men. I think they should.
What does that even mean? Men should be men. It's a tautology. Again, no real reflection of actually what does it mean to be a man? What historically what does that mean? And then be your own version of that. No, men should be men. Shut up, be a man, get on with it.
Should try to be providers and protectors. I think it's great when they work to be strong.
No, but not when Steve Coogan does it though. Not when he wants to protect little girls from Andrew Tate. No, doesn't apply to Steve Coogan. Again, insane. Just no values, no consistency, no real point.
And better. However, I'm also something of a Christian hippie. I like meditating. I like praying. I like.
Well, you're not a traditionalist then. If you're a hippie, you like praying, meditating. That's not traditional values. They're quite new. It's very Western idea of like kind of
reading books about monks who went to live in a cave and lived on a peanut a day to try and melt their own ego and find true union with the divine. Now, this meant during my time in London, I used to attend all sorts of meditation workshops and the like, and
soy.
I was at one day, and it was perfectly nice, all of the fellas there talking about love and peace and connection and transcendence, but suddenly a fella burst in, a big...
Well, that's not traditional values, is it? So he's not a real man then, is he?
6'4" mean-looking guy, and he started shouting at the women, interrupting the meditation period, and I could tell everybody was frightened. It turned out this guy was fresh out of jail, and I guess he was unwell and looking for trouble or something, but it shocked me that none of the men did anything. In fact, they all ran off at the end of the session.
This is a story. We don't know if this is true, by the way. Pure anecdote, so take it with a pinch of salt.
Was left with 3 women who were intimidated, and me and an old man. Now, in the end, me and the old fella had a quick word with him, perfectly politely, and thankfully he left with no harm done. However, it was a key lesson to me. All this talk of love and tolerance and beauty is all well and good, but if you don't have the hard line in you, you don't have the ability to lay down boundaries, to stand up to the tyrants of the world, then all that sweetness is absolutely meaningless.
I kind of agree here, but that's what Steve Coogan was doing. He was putting his boundary up for what's acceptable behaviour for men. And what Andrew Tate has allegedly done, again, the investigation is pending, we will find out probably in the next few months, that's what he was doing. So, again, he lacks pure self-awareness of actually what he's saying and what Steve Coogan was saying. It's just insane.
In fact, it will lead to total chaos and destruction. Now, what would Andrew Tate do in that room? He would be able to stand up to the bully. Even though Tate may have his faults, he can do that. What would Steve Coogan do? I'd put my money...
Again, faults. Be vague here. His faults. Can you go into a bit more detail about a pending investigation? That, No. Okay, fair enough.
That he'd run away with the rest of them. Now, this isn't me saying that we...
Well, you're just saying he would be violent. You're saying, no, violence is bad. Confrontation is bad. You shouldn't, deal with people who, are intimidating or potentially going to act violent. Again, inconsistent, incoherent, meaningless, no argument, contradiction himself. Insane.
We have to turn into egocentric materialists like Andrew Tate. It's me saying we have to respect what they get right. In fact, the very reason that people...
What does he get right, though? I don't think there's anything Andrew Tate really gets right. He's a hyper, again, nihilistic, consumeristic, treats women horribly. The allegations against him. Like, is there anything good there? Like, he doesn't actually outline what there is good there, which is telling in itself.
Like Andrew Tate are around is because of the Steve Coogans of the world. They've made things so soft and soppy, they've destroyed men.
Yeah, so soft and soppy, just treating women as equals. So it's just soppy, isn't it? Like, really, like, just too much. It's gone too far.
To such an extent that they need someone extreme on the other side now to balance things out. Now,
What? Such a what? Oh, be too nice. Like, you know, you're being too nice, so I just need to be horrible to you now. Does he wonder if he's got a wife that is too nice and he's the horrible guy? It'd be interesting to know that, wouldn't it?
naturally, what I'm pointing to here is something like a middle path. That is accepting our spiritual depth, being open to contemplation, working on ourselves and getting beyond the ego to see who and what we truly are. But with that, having a firm respect for the physical, the strength of this world, why we need it, why it's important for men. Of course, this is the path of masculine maturation, and in my view, the path of true Christian masculinity. You don't get too much of that in the church these days, but I do try and promote it on the Substack, amongst other things. Do check that out down below. Lots of exclusive content and free content coming shortly, and plenty to get your teeth into as well. In the meantime, do let me know what you think about all this down below, and do consider subscribing to the channel.
They don't really say much in the comments. It's just no analysis, no engagement, just they don't like Steve Coogan. So if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and I'll see you next time.